All right, class, welcome. We're in the middle of our donut project. So we've already done our generating concepts, researched, sampled some donuts in class. Hopefully those were good. You all have done your sketching of donuts. And so now we're moving on to the Onshape. So got a few skills to teach. Going to start with some of the more simple and basic ones and then kind of progress as we go. So as always, going to start by creating a document. Donut, we're going to call this the video version. So one of the most commonest, horrible English, the most common versions of donuts is the ring donut. A lot of times it's a cake, could be an old-fashioned or a cruller. But in this case, I'm just going to do a simple ring donut, create a ring shape for you here. So went ahead and hit all the planes except for the front, which I'm going to sketch on. Left my origin pointed, makes it a little bit easier. So the tool we're going to use here, and if you look up here in the buttons, you can kind of already see it right here with revolve. Kind of looks like part of a ring donut as it is, with a little bite taken out. So we're going to use this revolve tool. So the way it works, just like almost everything else, we start by sketching. So I'm going to sketch, I'm on the front plane. In this case, I need to sketch two things. Circle gives us that shape that creates the ring. And I also need to create what's called a revolve axis, which is a line. So I'm going to start by creating a line. In this case, I'm going to use a midpoint line. And I'm going to start just from the origin. I'm going to go up, straight up and down. You know, you're straight up and down. It's got that blue and yellow kind of jagged line going on. Once I'm done, I'm going to go over to the circle, do a center point circle. I'm going to come over from the origin. Didn't really matter if I did that. In this case, I'm just going to drop it right about here. We're going to give it a 1-inch diameter. We can change that later if we'd like. So I've got a circle, I've got a line. Now I'm going to revolve. It's going to ask me two things. What face or sketch do I want to revolve? Since I was still in the sketch tool, it automatically knows it's that circle. And it's asking me, what do I want to revolve it around? What axis am I revolving it around? Axes are basically just lines. So I'm clicking on that line. Now if I 3D spin it, probably not the right shape. Probably could have been a little bit closer to the line when I started the revolve. But there you go. That's our basic revolve ring donut shape. If I go back to the sketch, click on that front face to get a nice closer view. Say we want our donut hole to only be let's say a 1-inch wide donut hole. So we've got a 1-inch diameter, so we've already got half of the donut right here. This is a 1/2 inch from here to here. And so if I want from here to be 1/2 inch, we want from here to the center point to be 1 inch. So if I do 1 inch, hit that check mark, it already knows what I've done. Probably a little bit closer to that donut shape that you're thinking of. So that's how you create a ring donut. One of the other things I've been asked a few times today is, how do I add icing to a donut? In my opinion, easiest way to do it, we're going to go back in. We're going to create a new sketch. Should always do a new sketch. We're going to click on the front plane. I want to use part of my original donut. So I'm going to use that initial sketch. I'm going to create a 3-point arc. Kind of just a little bit. Let's cancel that. That's not doing what I want it to do. In this case, I'm going to sketch again on the front face. I want my 3-point arc. We're going to go back into our original sketch one. Probably a little bit easier than what I was trying to do. So again, 3-point arc. We can see our original lines. Really want to see the original lines because it makes it easier to sketch and extrude it. So in this case, I'm going to kind of just come up from the outside of my donut a little bit. I'm going to create an arc from one side to the other, and then the third point we're going to put it right at the top of our donut. So as of right now, I just have a sketch of an arc going across. Can't do much with that until it's a complete solid. So I'm going to draw my line. In this case, I'm going to go back to line. I'm going to click from my end point of my arc over to the edge of my donut. I'm going to escape from the line for a second, go back into it from this endpoint to the edge of my donut, escape. You'll now see I've kind of got this gray shape that sits on top of my donut. I'm going to check mark this. Now if I zoom back out, let's go ahead and click on this button and go to isometric. We now have our isometric view. Let's go ahead and hide that front plane. Let's hide our origin. So in this case, now I've got a donut. It's kind of got a second layer. So if I change and add appearance to the base of the donut, and let's make it a white cake donut, or we'll even go more of a orangey brown color. And let's say we want to add chocolate to the top. Had that request earlier today. Go with a nice dark chocolate. Now we've got a round donut with a chocolate layer to it. Now you notice as I 3D spin it, it only added that chocolate to the outside. So where that little small line was, it's not really all there. So I can, if I want to make sure this is nice and clean, there we go. Now my donut has a nice chocolate layer all the way around. So now we did revolve, added some icing. Go ahead and create a second donut for this next part. So real quick, I'm going to make a long john. I'm going to do it from a top-down view. I feel like that's a little bit easier for a long john, which is that long rectangular donut shape. So we're going to sketch from the top, give ourselves a rectangle. We're going to say it's 5 inches long by 1.75 inches wide, so decent size rectangle. I'm not going to bother filleting it for right now. We're just going to do it as this shape. Going to hit my extrude button to give it some depth. Want to make it about, let's say, 2.5 inches. Probably a little bit big. What if we go 1.75? Probably still a little big. 1.25. Maybe just 1 inch? There we go. Let's go with the 1 inch tape. So it's kind of that shape. I eventually want to fillet it off. But in this case, what I'm going to show now is adding some sprinkles to this donut. So this is more of a assembly feature than a part studio feature. In this case, now I'm going to create again from the top view. I'm going to hide the rest. I'm going to create a sketch. Sprinkles are essentially circles. They're pretty small diameter, so we'll go 1/8 of an inch. Then we're going to extrude it. And let's just go 3/4 of an inch. Green check mark. There we go. It's a little basic shape, but again, I can fillet this and give it that rounded off shape. But for now, my goal is just to show you how to add sprinkles to the donut. So I'm going to go to an assembly tab. I'm going to hit on insert. I'm going to insert 2 parts. So we're going to go part studio 2. Probably should have hit the drop down, but I knew I only had 1 part in there. It's my long rectangle that's filling in for a long john. I'm also going to add in some sprinkles. For now, just 2 works. So in this case, got 2 sprinkles, got the top of my donut. Now, if I wanted to get my sprinkle going the right direction, always helps. Let's say, for this example, there we go. We got 2 sprinkles, and just drag them both up. So they're kind of floating over top of the top. Not really, though. Now, the way we typically would do this is we would fasten mate. That would ask, what are we fastening? We're fastening the top of this donut. Oh, but hold on. There's only certain mate points. The smack dab middle, and then the edges of the sides. And really it's just where the white dots are. So there's a total of 9 mate points. So we got to go back a step. We've got to add some mate points. So if I click on mate connector, it's going to ask me where. I'm adding it on an entity. I'm adding it on this entity. And I'm going to need to move it. Let's move it over into here. So if I look at this, my red is my X, green is my Y, and I'm not really worried about my Z. So if I want to move it this way and down a little bit, let's go -1 inch and -0.5 inch. I now have a mate point there. So let's say we're going to add another sprinkle over here. Again, mate connector, the face, move. In this case, let's go 1 inch positive, 0.5. Now it's right there. So now I've added 2 mate connectors. I've got my sprinkles. Let's see if we can connect these now. So now I'm going to go smack dab in the middle of that mate connector. So it still did something weird. So we need to now work on fixing that piece. So if I double click on this, so what we noticed was when we did that and it stuck out, that was because the mate connector in here kind of runs right through the middle of that sprinkle. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab that mate connector and we're going to realign it. I'm sorry, we're actually going to move it. So right now the middle of it is in the middle of this sprinkle, which if you remember was 1/8 of an inch. So we want to move it to the outside, 1/16 of an inch. So now if we zoom in, kind of look from the top down, it's now on the outside, but again it's still oriented the wrong way. So now we're going to rotate it. And it looks like we're going to rotate it about that green axis, which happens to be, if we look here, the Y. So rotate it about the Y. Let's go 90 degrees. Oh, so now we don't see the circle anymore. But if I zoom out, it's now right there on the smack dab on the edge. So now the mate connector for this sprinkle is right here in the middle of this side. So now if I fasten mate, I click our new fasten mate spot, or our mate connector spot I should call it. Let's use the right terms. Smack dab right there. There we go. We've now got our sprinkle on top of our donut. If we wanted to repeat for the other one, again, move it 1/16 of an inch to where it's on the outside. We're going to rotate it, the Y, 90 degrees. It's now smack dab on the edge. We're now going to connect that to that. We now got two sprinkles connected to the top. Now if I wanted to go through add some appearances, go back into Part Studio 2, let's say change this. Let's just make it a chocolate donut. I guess it'd be kind of a dark chocolate since I'm using a black color. That's good. Now in Part Studio 3, let's make this a, I don't know, edit appearance for the part. Let's make it a red sprinkle. Now back in my assembly. Not really an amazing look here, but I've got two red sprinkles on top of that all black donut. So that is how you add the mate points, move them to the right place. Did the same thing on the sprinkles, changed their orientation, so that way instead of being flat in the middle, they were going down the sides like this. So that way once we connected them, they were nice and aligned. So if I wanted to cover this with a whole bunch of sprinkles, again, repeat the process, adding a bunch of mate connectors, inserting a bunch of sprinkles, and connecting them. That's the main skills I've seen so far being asked today. So hopefully this video helps. This is definitely a more advanced, more time-consuming skill. So take your time with it. If you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you have any other questions, come see me in class. Other than that, again, just have fun with this project. Thanks, y'all.